Hello everybody, I'm Elwirfy, and today I wanted to make a video talking about this wonderful little short video made by someone called Kneecap Jake. Great person. We're going to drop a sub, bam, before the video's even started, because I already watched the video, I think it's great, and I want to help promote it, get it sent around, because I think that these sentiments and these feelings that are going to be expressed in this video are very valuable, and I wanted to give my own insight in my own life experience while we watch this video together. Obviously, I encourage you to reflect on your own life, depending on where you are in your career, I guess you could say.
I never wanted a job. The idea of going somewhere every day, following orders, just to earn money, it never appealed to me.
Yeah, it never appealed to me either. So the main premise of, I know we're only 7 seconds in, and I'm already pausing the video, but that's the core premise of the video, right? Most jobs feel very soul-sucking and draining. And that's pretty common, especially if you're watching this and you're a bit younger and maybe you don't have as many years of experience as like I do or he does of working in jobs, especially ones that are working for minimum wage, doing menial tasks. A lot of it does feel like you're wasting your time just to get a paycheck. And that's why it's so important as you go through your time in education that you determine something that you become passionate about to help project you as to where you would like to go in the future. So that way you're not risking being in a cycle where you're working jobs solely to make money and that there's no drive for you to want to improve yourself in your respective field.
And because of that, I spent most of my life coasting. No goals, no plans, just assuming life would somehow figure itself out for me. But life didn't just figure itself out. And by the time that I realised that, I was about to turn 30.
Yeah, so he's a bit older than me. But this is pretty common for a lot of people, but me as well, especially going through middle school and high school. I always felt that I was kind of just going through the motions, jumping through the hoops. It wasn't until I got to college that I kind of realized, like, for sure what I want to do with my career. I mean, now I'm at the point as I'm recording this, I'm about to enter my master program. I'm really excited about that. And I'm really looking forward to pursuing my career in a more meaningful way after I get the proper education. But definitely in those early years, it can definitely feel like you're not really making improvements in your life and you're very stagnant and you're kind of just waiting around to get to the part of life where you get to do what you want to do. I think that's a pretty common feeling for most people.
So in this video, I will share the decisions I've made, what I have learned as a consequence of my actions, and why I wish I figured this out sooner. Growing up, people would often ask me, what do you want to do when you're older? And I never had a clear answer.
I always had an answer. I've actually had the same answer since I was 14 years old, that I want to be a dad someday. And I've thought about this a lot, and I really want to be a dad, have a family, the whole shebang. That's my whole thing, right? But it was never what do I want to do as a career, would my answer be. My answer would be more personal, more emotionally driven of like I want to be a parent, you know. So it's okay to not necessarily know what you want to do for a job. At the time when I was 14, I didn't know for sure what I'd want to do for my future job, right? But now I know what I want to do, and I'm happy with my decision and where my life is moving forward. Um, but not everyone's there, and clearly it's a tough question to answer when you're a kid, when your parents or your teacher asks, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? You don't always know the answer, and it's okay to not know the answer. And that's why I think personally, I think it's good to give an emotionally driven answer as a response. Maybe you're not like me. Maybe you don't want to be a dad. Maybe you just want to, have a family, or maybe you just want to have a lot of friends, or whatever you want should be your answer. It doesn't have to be a career, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I just couldn't understand making plans for the future because I could only just get my head around what I wanted to do in the next 5 minutes. All I wanted to do was see my friends and play video games.
And I think that's a completely fair answer. If that's what you want and you're happy with that, I think you should do it. No one should ever guilt you or make you feel bad about getting a job or not getting a job. It's your life at the end of the day, and I think you should do whatever makes you happy. I think that's the most valuable thing that you could do for yourself.
I didn't want to do anything. My dad used to say to me that I was coasting through school, that I never really applied myself. And although I was bitter about this at the time, he was right. I thought I could just drift.
And some people do. If that wasn't appropriate for him, that's fine. But some people do just drift and they don't do anything. Like, it's not perfect and it's not something I personally am comfortable with, but some people like that kind of lifestyle. So don't be discouraged if that's what you want, but you should be honest with yourself if that is what you want.
At some point, I would just know what I was supposed to be doing, like a calling. That calling never came. It wasn't even that I was trying to avoid thinking about the future or that I was lazy. It was like my brain just couldn't go there. I had this mental block. I couldn't think beyond the now. Even today, I still struggle to imagine exactly what I want in the future.
And that's okay. It's completely normal, I think, to have these moments of, I guess, what would we call them? An existential crisis, perhaps, where you kind of just don't know what you're doing with yourself. And you have to reevaluate your situation and figure out what your future is going to look like. It might come in a lot of different forms. It might come in the form of a job. It might come in the form of a family. It might come in the form of maybe personal goals or achievements. It might come in the way of hobbies, of different social settings. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. Like I'm not a genie. I don't know all the answers, but you certainly have options, right? And it's okay for you to not know which of those options you want yet, I think.
But back then, it was just impossible. I continued to just follow my feelings, what felt good,
And that's
which
okay.
ultimately led to lots of video games, staying
Sure.
up late and doing just enough that I could pass college. One day I had completed my project work, all printed and neatly bound, and handing this in would put me at a triple distinction for my grade, and tomorrow was the deadline. I was at a friend's house playing video games and we decided to stay up all night. The next morning soon came around and the idea popped into my head. What if we just didn't go to college? I'll still pass even if I don't hand this work in.
Well, I mean, nothing was stopping you. You could have done that. Obviously, it sounds like I know he's not done with the story, but I wanted to. I think that it's very natural to feel like if you're someone who likes staying at home and just playing video games with your friends, to think that that is, if you're going to do that forever, why bother doing anything else? Well, for a lot of people, you do unfortunately need money to survive. You know, we can't all live with our parents forever. Eventually, they'll die. Even if you're those, 40, 50 plus people who live with their parents when they're 90 until they, like, you know what I mean? Like, eventually you have to take care of yourself. It's inevitable for everyone. It's unfortunate and it sucks and it's a reality I very much try not to think about. But that's why we get jobs and why we try and make families of our own so that way we can be independent and not have to rely on others for our happiness, ideally, right? So it makes sense to back then, when if you're about to start college, if you're ending high school, I know it's England, so maybe everything's a bit different, but before you go into college, there's always obviously the feeling of like, well, why couldn't I just not bother if I'm already doing what I want to do? But I have found that going through college while I got my bachelor degree, because right now I'm working on my master's. So when I was going through the process of getting my bachelor degree, I definitely changed from the person who I was at the start of that process to the end. And while I've always wanted to be a dad and have a family, I certainly have changed my view of how to approach achieving that goal. And I think that's a really key element here.
I'll just get a little bit of a lower grade. And so I brought the idea up and we had made the decision. I never did hand that work in. After college, I got a part-time job in a care home for people with brain injuries. I worked just enough to pay rent and get by. But that was it. I had no savings, but I didn't care. Every hour that I spent at work past the amount that I needed for that month felt like pain.
Yeah, because so when you're working in those jobs where you're not doing anything, like my first job that I ever did, I was working in food, right, and I was a dishwasher. I'm keeping it vague because I don't want to give company names and stuff, but I was working as a dishwasher, and it really did feel like, because there were no clocks back there, it felt like it took forever to get through the day, and it was really hard to do. And obviously, there's no passion in washing dishes. Like I didn't care, right? But at the end of the day, I needed money. I was 16, and it was just, I needed to get it done, so that way I could support a future life that I wanted, help pay for some of my college, just makes life easier. So you kind of have to go in and just do it, but it's very soul sucking and very draining. And I think most people would agree. Most low level jobs do not feel fulfilling, and I guess they're not supposed to, but that I feel like that's not a good way companies should be organized. Not that I have a solution for that. I'm not proposing a solution, but it is something just I've felt that like it sucks that the menial jobs are not fulfilling, to me at least.
Just didn't want to be there. I still thought that I could avoid working too hard and life would still work out. One day a resident came in who had HIV, and I was told that he was violent and a biter. I was terrified at the thought of it. Could he transmit HIV to me with one angry bite? Why was I even still working here? That was the first time I actually questioned what I was doing with my life.
Yeah, I mean, any job that puts you into a situation with dangerous people will definitely make you reevaluate the value of your paycheck versus your safety. And obviously, I very much so believe that safety is your number one thing. I'm not someone who believes in the idea of putting yourself in harm's way just to make money. I would think that if you're putting yourself in harm's way, it's because you have a passion for what you're doing, and the risk of getting harmed is worth the passion that you're putting into it. So since he isn't invested in his job, it makes sense to not want to continue doing that job because for him, the risk being given is outweighing the value of the money in this instance.
And instead of trying to figure it out, I decided to run away from it. I thought that if I gave university a go, I wouldn't have to deal with this anymore. And so I
A lot of people will go to college and go to school to avoid going to work. One thing that was proposed, I heard, I don't remember where I heard it, but someone once proposed to me the idea that a lot of people like to go to college to avoid the responsibility of going to work. Um, and so, like, after I got my bachelor degree, I tried to start a family and work, and that didn't end up working out. So now I'm back in school, right, to hopefully restart. But like, not everyone will have that same mindset that I have, where I'm just in school with the goal of getting a job. Other people will go to school with no job in mind, and they're using it as a way to avoid their problems and delay the realities of being an adult, of having to take care of yourself.
attended university. Not because I had a career plan, but because I just wanted an escape. I
Exactly.
could put the world of work off for a few more years and coast a bit more. The weird thing is that I didn't actually regret university until recently. Only now, looking back at how much I owe in student debt, do I see how reckless that decision really was.
It's only reckless if your job that you're getting with your degree isn't able to help cover the cost of the student loan, which is true for most people, unfortunately. Most jobs that you get with your degree won't cover the student loan debt, and you'll be stuck paying student loans for a long time. Student loan is one of those inevitable things if you can't afford college that you have to really consider the cost to benefit of getting that loan. There's ways to help with the loan, like you can get, like if you're younger, you could get parents to help co-sign a loan. You could get like a scholarship, you can get financial aid. There's stuff you can do, and I don't know what his situation was, so I'm not going to comment on it. But I think that you should definitely, like, if you're someone who has to take a student loan out, I feel like you should really consider the cost of benefit and make sure that when you're done with your degree that you're getting, that that job will be able to help cover the cost of the student loan. Otherwise, it might be worth delaying college and working for a bit, so that way you don't have to take student loans as another alternative method.
But back then, it just wasn't a concern for me. I had no foresight into my own future, no real grasp on the consequences. Even the student loan companies were saying things like, no one ever pays these things off, it will just get written off in 30 years.
That's not true. Student loans are the only thing that you cannot hide from ever. Even through bankruptcy, a student loan will always be with you. Why? Because you can't refund a degree, at least as far as I know. So you'll always owe that money, which is why you need to be careful about taking a student loan if you're not prepared to work on paying it off. You could take the credit hit and just never pay it off. That's something I know some people do, but again, that's not great. That'll give you other problems in life. So it's again like, and here's the weird thing is that I'm assuming that based on how he's talking, it sounds like when he got the loan, the people there tried to make it seem like it wasn't as big of a deal as it was. I don't know his interest rate. I don't know what his total cost was. Like, I don't know enough info to know whether or not his degree was worth it or not. But obviously, from his perspective, he feels like it isn't. So if you're considering taking out a student loan, just keep in mind what kind of a job you're getting with that investment.
And if that's the case, why are they even giving out the loans? They must be making money somewhere. And
Yeah.
so I took on student debt for the wrong reason.
Yeah. So they make money from the interest that's accrued from you not paying your student loans.
If you're thinking about uni yourself, don't do what I did. Do it because you actually want to be there, not just to run away from life.
Yep.
It wasn't until my late 20s that I finally understood something. Work isn't just about money or making yourself do something that you hate. It can give you a sense of self-respect, purpose, direction, and without those things you just feel numb. And I felt numb for a lot of my life.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will go to work without passion, and then they'll have their passion outside of their work, and they just kind of accept that work is where they are sad. And I did that for a good while. I went to work, and work was the most depressing part of my life. And then I'd come home, and everything would be back to normal. I'd feel like myself again. But like now, I'm at a point where like I know what I want to do, so I'm striving towards that goal to have a job where I will be able to have passion in my life, and work won't be the worst part of my day. You know what I mean? So that's why it's really important to kind of figure out what you want, in my opinion, before you go to college. And it's okay if you don't know. I mean, you could get a general, like, associate's degree, for example, before you have to commit to a bachelor degree and, like, figure yourself out there, get a variety of classes. Obviously, it helps to have a plan, but you have to consider, like, is it a job where if you were doing it daily, you would have enough variety, perhaps? At least for me, like, for my job that I want, I'm going to have a lot of variety. I'm going to be having a lot of social interactions, and I'm going to be able to help a lot of people. And for me, that's what I value out of a future job. And so I'm happy with my choice. But other people have different passions. Some people are introverts. Some people don't want to talk to people. So it's about what's comfortable for you and what you could be doing for the rest of your life.
I had no passion for what I was doing. I had no purpose. I often sat in my room alone, feeling depressed, wishing
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a pretty common feeling. I've certainly done a good amount of that, and it still happens sometimes. But you just try and look past it, which I know is horrible advice, because when you're at that point, when you're like depressed and you feel like you can't move or do anything, or you can't talk to anyone, there doesn't seem like there's a way out. But if you just kind of, I guess, what would the word be? I guess if you keep your head down and just plow through and just force yourself to get done what you need to get done, you can. I believe at least that I'll come out on the other side of things and feel like I'm accomplishing something and feel happier with my life. But not everyone views it that way, and my view might be unique to me. So don't. I'm not a medical doctor, by the way. I have no medical license at all, so don't trust me for that aspect as to like a solution for being depressed. But if you're someone who's like in your room alone all the time, you don't have anyone to talk to, and you're just talking to yourself, kind of like what I'm doing, you got to find ways to maybe justify to yourself that what you're doing is worth your time.
that I had some sort of direction in my life. I used to feel a deep sense of dread every time I had to plan something for the morning. Just the thought of work gave me stress headaches. It was like my brain was overheating from the pressure. I just felt awful. Only now, looking back, do I realise how much healthier I am. When I hear a student say,
Yeah. So, oh, is he a teacher? That's cool. Because he said student. Yeah, that's pretty common though that you would feel like you're getting a headache out of it. You know, that like having to do social interaction is tough because when you're depressed, you tend to want to be isolated, and social interaction is a pain. But you kind of that's one of those things you have to force yourself to do, and that takes willpower, and that's not easy by any means. But it is something that will, I think, help you combating that depression is having more social interactions with people.
I'm the best teaching assistant they've ever had, or
Oh, teaching assistant. There you go. That's cool.
I finish a creative project I never thought I could do. I feel something that I've never had before. Pride. Not just in my work, but in myself. The truth is, you don't just stumble upon direction. It takes trying new things, failing at things, and trying again.
That's very true. That's why when you're in school, it's important to have a good learning environment where you're allowed to fail and make mistakes and improve on yourself rather than you fail and then you're just out of the class. You just can't succeed, right? I think that there's success that can come with failure as long as there's good recognition of how to solve that failure with new versions of success. That's appropriate, of course. So uh, I'm not surprised by what he's saying.
Direction, purpose, self-respect, they all come with trying. Putting effort into work. Since I started truly giving my all to the work that I want to do, I feel so much more alive. I am awake. and driven. I get up early not because I have to, because I don't, but because I want to ensure that I put all of my energy into something, into work, to
Yeah, and so what he's done is an example. He found a work that makes him happy, and now he's able to put his efforts and his energy into something that he loves, into something that he cares about, which is really good. I think that's wonderful. And I think that that's a really good demonstration of his growth from starting out as the kid who just wanted to stay at home and play video games to becoming the adult who found a passion and a job that they cared about and that they're putting all their effort into to the point where they're enjoying it, to where it's a positive influence on your life. I think this is a huge demonstration of growth on this person's part, and I've had a similar-ish journey, I guess you could say.
focus on something that matters to me. I also found multiple jobs that give me a deep sense of satisfaction and a connection with other people. Working with students who need additional learning support and making creative work for a marketing company. I spent most of my life avoiding work, and now I see it differently. Not every job will fulfill you, but sitting around waiting for life to happen, that's worse.
That is worse. You definitely need to put yourself out there and go after the things that you value. Like for me, like I still want to be a dad. I want to have a family, so I'm going to put myself out there and try to achieve that one way or another. And for me, part of that is getting a career where I know I can support a family, for example. So that's like an example of me putting myself out there and trying to improve myself, right? Because I want a family, because I want to be able to support having a kid. I want to make sure that I have a career that will allow me to do those things, to be able to facilitate a good home life. So for me, that's how I justify kind of having a job for myself right now. But that's for me. You might have a different reason to justify work, and that's fine.
If you don't choose a direction, life will choose one for you, and you might not like where it takes you. And if you want to know how my life of
Yeah. So and yeah, that's the main wrap up. This guy's great, by the way. Definitely subscribe to this guy. Um, but yeah, I mean, just kind of some closing thoughts. You definitely want to make forward progress in life. I think that you'll find that if you really do nothing, you'll end up much lonelier and less people will be there to support you. And you're just going to be, I think, in a worse mental state as well. So I don't know how, for you watching, you would want to go about making those choices, but any choice is better than no choice at all. Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. As always, I'm Elwirfy, and I will definitely be seeing you guys next time. Take care, everyone.